Senator Shelley Capito of West Virginia is joining us live from Capitol Hill. Senator, thank you so much for being with us on this State of the Union evening. We do want to get to what you expect to hear from the president's speech, but we also do have a question of this hour as to when exactly the Senate may be voting to advance the package, six bill package for spending to keep the government open past midnight tomorrow. Senator, do you know when you will be voting? Will you do so after the speech tonight?
Well, we very possibly could vote after the speech tonight. I mean, we realize that the House sent us overwhelmingly large vote on the six spending packages, which sets our priorities, cuts spending. So we will be considering that either late tonight or tomorrow afternoon. I have a feeling it might be tonight. I'm going to be voting on that. I don't want a government shutdown, and so I think it's time for us to move on our spending bills, and I'm glad that we're going to be doing this.
So it will pass the Senate, Senator, whether it's tonight or tomorrow. I ask you that knowing that the second portion of this could be a lot more difficult than the first.
The second portion could will very well be. It has Homeland Security in there, Department of Defense. My bill is the Health, Education, and Labor bill. I believe the bill tonight with the six bills will pass. Many of them have already passed. Three have passed in the Senate. Several have passed in the House. We are going to have some amendment votes, so they may be changed ever slightly, but I feel very confident that the Senate will pass these bills.
But, of course, we have a pretty big speech to get through first that you will be listening to, Senator. I know you spoke earlier on the Senate floor ahead of the president's speech, talking about a number of issues, including what you described as an assault on American energy. This at a time when, in 2023, the U.S. pumped a record amount of oil. What exactly is wrong with this administration's energy policy?
The administration has closed in our energy resources. Just 3 weeks ago, they decided to shut down new construction on our LNG facilities. To me, that hampers not only our domestic energy production, but it also will certainly hurt in our ability to help our allies in Europe. We know they were relying on Russia for natural gas, so I think that this is exceedingly important that we use all of our resources, not just for ourselves, but also for the international safety aspects of it. I can tell you I sit on the Environment and Public Works Committee. It is regulation after regulation after regulation of this enforced green agenda, which we see now is beginning to crumble while electric vehicles are not being sold as they were promised. The electric vehicle stations aren't being built. So I really do think we've squandered an opportunity here to use our own energy for our own safety.
We spoke earlier about the export of LNG, this moratorium that you referred to with Amos Hochstein, of course, one of the president's advisors, a senior advisor when it comes to energy. Senator, here's what he told us. We'll have you respond.
Okay.
That beyond 2020, beyond 2030, do we need to look for a minute and say, with such exponential growth that we've seen, do we need to look at the economic impact, on the market impact? And do we have to look at what the environmental and climate impacts are on the communities that live along our Gulf Coast before we say we're going to give more permits?
Senator, is it not worth answering those questions before moving on, or do you, like some, believe the administration will make that moratorium permanent?
I believe their goal is to make the moratorium permanent. I think we have to look at not just where we are now, but if we look at the electrification of our country, how are we going to power generate to be able to do that? You have to use your basic fuels. Natural gas is one of those. Nuclear. This administration has made it very, very tough to permit anything, and they keep piling on all kinds of different regulations that really hampers our ability to do the baseload energy that we're going to need, not just now, but in the future. So if you're asking me to look into the future, tell me how you're going to power America and power this green agenda without more energy. It can't be done.
Well, as we talk about regulation, and this does relate to the question of energy composition and climate impact in the U.S., the Securities and Exchange Commission yesterday finalized and approved a climate disclosure rule that may have been watered down from what was initially proposed, but already has drawn a lawsuit from the Attorney General of your state, leading a group of 9 states against that rule. Senator, what do you think about the move the SEC has made?
Well, the problem I see with this is this goes all through the administration, and they want to have climate and carbon, and are you using it in the beginning? Who uses it in the end? I think they make the metrics impossible for people to meet and for people to measure. And so, you know, we all want cleaner air, cleaner water, and we're getting there. We need the technology, innovation, and resources to go in that direction, you know, whether it's a hydrogen economy, whether it's carbon capture. All of these things are in our future. But to make our companies be accountable for every single flow, I think it slows the economy. And then what happens? Things get more expensive. People lose their jobs. I mean, it has a compounding effect. And I am fearful that that's what we can see with all of these regulations that are piling on top.
Senator Capito, we've had a look at the guest list for the president tonight at the State of the Union. When you look up into the gallery and to where the First Lady is sitting, you will see the Prime Minister of Sweden. I know that you might want to turn to the border with an answer to this question, but I wonder if you have a message for the Prime Minister when it comes to the request for funding for Ukraine.
Well, I think obviously Sweden has just been admitted into NATO. That is a huge alliance, our allies, and we need to help Ukraine, our allies, NATO. Obviously, us being the largest contributor here, we need to push Putin back, because if we don't push him back in Ukraine, we don't use the funding for Ukraine, when we walk away from this, we're going to empower Putin. And where's he going to go next? He's going to go to a NATO allied country. We know that. He's not going to stop there. So a weakened Putin is in our self-interest. That's why I believe that funding for Ukraine is exceedingly important. And that's why I think, you know, the ambassador from Sweden would probably agree with that. They're right there. They're next door neighbors.
Of course, funding for Ukraine remains an open question as to how it will be dealt with in the House, whether there is a legislative solution to be found in that body. Meantime, though, a committee in the House is moving forward on a separate issue, and this pertains to a relevant committee you are on in the Senate. The House Energy and Commerce Committee just today passed unanimously a bill that would require TikTok to be divested from its Chinese owner ByteDance or be banned in the United States. Would you support that measure in the Senate? Do you think it would pass both chambers?
Absolutely, I would support that. I do think the influence of China on TikTok, on our youth, and what we see, it just, I mean, commercial after commercial for TikTok, in my view, trying to convince us that all the best things happen here when we know the Chinese are behind this. Yes, they must divest of TikTok, and I would fully support that. Whether it would pass the Senate or not, I think it would have a pretty good vote. I'm not sure we'd get all the way, but I would certainly hope so.
Senator, who's your guest tonight, if you have one, for the State of the Union?
Well, I have a special guest, and that's my husband's coming, actually, to the State of the Union tonight to view the State of the Union, and I'll get his perspectives when we finish.
How about that? Well, you'll have to let us know what he thought of it. What a refreshing, non-political answer. Senator Shelley Capito,
Yes.
Thanks for joining us tonight from Capitol Hill.
Thank you all.